second video of the day. Amazing Digital Circus episode 3 came out a few days ago. And whenever these episodes come out, either of this show or Hell of a Boss, you know, it's never a guarantee that I'm going to review them, that I'm going to make a video vlog dedicated to reviewing them. It's always just a thing that I will do if I have something to say about it. And it seems like lately, you know, everything that's been coming out, I've had stuff to say about. I've been interested in. And this is no exception. So I was, you know, I knew that this was going to be a haunted house episode. And it's funny that we're getting a Hell of a Boss episode this month as well. That's sort of Luigi's Mansion inspired. Ghost Fuckers it's called, which is a great title. But yeah, there's a part in this episode where Jax sucks up a ghost with a vacuum cleaner. So just interesting that we're getting these, both shows are doing a similar concept, I guess. But with this Digital Circus, so it wasn't quite what I was expecting, because I was, you know, I'd heard certain things, and I'd heard that Gooseworks had said that the episode would not be like mind-blowing or anything. It would just be kind of a fun, spooky haunted house episode. And so maybe my expectations were lowered in terms of what the episode was going to provide for the storytelling and the concepts and whatnot. And so I was surprised that is actually the whole haunted house spooky thing wasn't really the part of the episode that I liked. It was the actually the character development and the deeper aspects of the storytelling. You know, this one's kind of different from the other two, because the other two were very bright and very colorful and very appealing to look at. And I enjoyed the sort of the antics and the cartoon scenarios in the other two quite a lot. This one, I felt, you know, it looked boring, it looked dark, it didn't have a great atmosphere. It was often hard to see what was going on in the episode, and it wasn't a very appealing episode, honestly. The other two I felt were very appealing visually and had a lot to offer there with the adventures. This one, it just, yeah, whatever they were going for with the sort of fun haunted house vibe, I didn't really enjoy. But there were some really interesting conceptual things in it, and kind of subtle, like, you know, I liked the whole deal with the character who was trying to kill this monster, and then he ends up becoming the monster in his own life by becoming fixated on killing this thing to protect his family. He shoots his wife, thinking that she's the monster. So paradoxically, you know, that in trying to protect his family, he kills his family, which kind of leaves him with nothing to live for in the end. But this character is very allegorical, I think, to the situation that the characters are in the Digital Circus. Let me just pull up the episode so I can remember the words that he said.
The creature you see before you is one I've been pursuing for years. Not quite a man, but not quite an animal. Something unholy, something evil.
Yeah, so the reason he's obsessed with this creature is that it's not quite a man, it's not quite an animal, it's something unholy and evil. Very similar, I think, to what's going on with the Digital Circus crew. They're not quite human, and they're not quite computer programs. There's something in between. And this is immensely disturbing to them. And it's especially disturbing to Zooble. And we see with her character in this episode, she gets to explain a little bit about why she's so disinterested in Caine's adventures. And, you know, she talks about her body and hating her body. And of course, I take this to mean that she is just totally uncomfortable in the digital world. She didn't have any hand in choosing what she looks like. None of the characters did. And so they're put into these new bodies. And in fact, that's the first thing she says to Pomni. She's like, in that first episode, she's like, welcome to your new home and your new body. So clearly the being in a digital body thing is very upsetting to Zooble on a really intrinsic level. Like her mind just cannot get adjusted to being in this new body. Very much reminds me of BIID, body image. What is that disorder called? BIID, body integrity dysphoria, where you feel like that's BID. I don't know why. Oh, body integrity identity disorder is another word for it. So it's where you feel like you don't like your body in the sense that like you innately feel like you should be limbless, or you should be blind, or that you should be disabled in some way, and that you're extremely uncomfortable unless you can be that. And then of course there's also the whole connection to being transgender, and feeling that body dysphoria when it comes to feeling like you were born in the wrong body. And so I like that the show is kind of making connections there to real things, and showing how, the same exact sort of human impulses and human sort of psychology that would go into creating those sorts of mental disorders also affect these people in the digital world, where in very understandable ways their minds are not meant to be in this kind of environment with these digital bodies. They're supposed to have organic, real bodies. And so it makes sense that Zooble would have a really negative reaction to this that she just can't get over. And I really like how Caine just sort of doesn't get it. And that's the thing that's one of the things that makes Caine an interesting character, that he's not a human, and he just doesn't understand what it's like to be human. He can't fathom intellectually what it means when people try to express things to him, these emotions that they feel, because he just doesn't. He's not programmed to understand that stuff. He's programmed to create wacky circus adventures, and that's the one thing he takes pride in. And we see that he takes pride in that in this episode, that Caine actually does have emotions, because Zooble kind of confronts him about the fact that nobody likes his adventures, and he gets really self-conscious about that. And it seems like him being self-conscious affects the world around him, because I guess it makes sense, because Caine is kind of all-powerful in this world, and so him freaking out on the inside kind of makes the whole world freak out, because he's basically the god of this world. But yeah, it's interesting to see confirmation that Caine does have emotions. He is aware. Now you could argue, oh, well, how does artificial intelligence work? Is he really aware in the way that humans are aware? This is the same exact deal that we were talking about in the last episode with Gummy Goo. The question of, does Gummy Goo feel the way humans feel? Does he perceive himself the way humans perceive themselves, or is he just a really impressive simulation of that? Caine could be similar, but I don't think he is, because I think if he were, then he would be really trying to mimic, like the program would be designed to mimic human psychology, and it's clearly not. It's designed with a certain purpose in mind. Caine is designed with the purpose of being this ringmaster, and this sort of creative, but he's not designed to be able to mimic human emotions, and that's fascinating, that he can't mimic human emotions, whether he's actually having emotions or not. He can't even mimic human emotions. He can't even really understand human emotions even as well as the creatures he creates. Like, Gummy Goo understood human psychology better than the person who created Gummy Goo, which is fascinating. And I just love that element where Zooble says, I'm uncomfortable with this body. And he's like, oh, well, we already solved that problem, remember? I gave you all these different parts that you can put on your body to find something that works for you. And he just doesn't get it, that no, it's not the specific limbs that I'm putting on and taking off that I have a problem with. It's everything. It's being here at all. I can't stand it. And he's not programmed to understand that kind of nuance in the way people talk. He's programmed to be this very kind of boisterous, loud entertainer. And that's kind of how he approaches all topics, as this sort of presenter. I also liked how he said, you'll hurt Bubbles' feelings, instead of saying you'll hurt my feelings. Which sort of, I don't know what that indicates. Does it indicate that he's insecure about the idea that he would be insecure, which is also interesting. And maybe it makes sense because he has to have this sort of this belief that he's this this man who's perpetually an entertainer, who is perpetually the ringmaster, who's in control of the whole show. And if somebody gets him to doubt his ability to do that, what does that do to his ability to do that? What does that do to him? I'd be interested in seeing that issue explored more. But yeah, getting back to this guy on the tape recorder, talking about this obsessively trying to kill this creature that is neither human nor animal. Very similar to all of the characters having this obsession, whether they repress it or not. This obsession with trying to kill this sort of weird computer man hybrid that they are to regain their humanity fully. There's this innate sort of disturbance that they feel at the idea of not being fully human. And they are trying to kill that disturbance.
I took it upon myself to spend every waking moment doing all I could to protect my family from the creature, hoping that when I'd eventually killed it, I would be freed from this awful feeling, this inescapable dread.
Yeah, he says that when he is hoping that when he has finally killed this creature, he'll be free from this awful feeling, this inescapable dread. I love that. I love how it's like Caine. It's like there's an intelligence beyond Caine that's working through him. It's like Caine doesn't understand even really what he's making. And we see that with Gummy Goo, where he made a character who is way more human than he was. And he doesn't understand humans, but somehow he's able to create an AI that can mimic human intelligence. And I think that says a lot about AI, because often AI learns how to do things, and we don't know how AI is teaching itself to do things because it's programmed to figure out how to do stuff that we don't even know how to teach it in the first place. So I think it makes sense that with AI, because Caine is an AI and he's creating AI to run these programs, that it would be able to go beyond his ability to comprehend. And so here it's really psychological horror. It's getting to these characters the thing that disturbs them the most, which is this dread of being sort of man-computer hybrids. Yeah, and then Kinger saying, I'm starting to think, and stopping there, good gag, but I think it means more later on when you see that Kinger, when he's in these dark environments, he sort of slowly starts to regain his memory and regain his ability to kind of process the world as an ego. Because I think that's kind of the thing that Kinger struggles with, is that he kind of has lost sense of himself and who he is and his memories. And and lost the kind of a consistent picture of the world around him, because he's sort of, I guess through the trauma of losing his wife, he's gone a little bit crazy, but he hasn't abstracted, which is interesting. It's like he's sort of, his brain has found a way to protect itself by kind of losing part of itself in the process so that he doesn't abstract. And then you have the whole gag of, okay, the head, you know, the guy says, do not let the head out of your sight. Because the head is separated from the body of this creature that is neither man nor beast. That's a good metaphor, I think, for, you know, don't lose your head, because then you'll abstract. Don't lose your sense of who you are and that you are real. And that's what we were getting in the last episode about this kind of, this sort of, there's a danger of losing your belief in your own reality as a human being, that you are a real thing that exists. And that's very dangerous, because that can lead to you abstracting. And so this is like, don't lose your head. It's kind of a metaphor for that. And it's done through horror. You know, it's a horror metaphor for what they're going through. It's psychological horror. And we have this part where Kinger stares into the mouth of this creature. And he sees his wife in these sort of little eye patterns in the mouth of this creature. And of course, because he's not lucid enough, he hasn't quite regained his sanity enough in the dark yet. He doesn't understand why he's attracted to this sort of pattern, but he instinctively starts talking to it like it's his wife, because that's what he remembers of his wife when she was abstracted inside their fortress, his impenetrable fortress, which now we know why he goes in there, because it's dark and he can kind of regain himself and also be calmed by the darkness, because the reason he kind of regains himself in the dark is because it is calming, because he has that memory of being in the dark with his wife, his abstracted wife. Although they were in a fort already in that scene, so I'm wondering why the fort was there at that time. And it looked a lot bigger, because the fort that he has now is tiny, made out of those little pillows. I wonder, like, what that whole fort thing was, why they had it. Also, his wife had an insect collection, and that was something established in the first episode, that Kinger is obsessed with insect collections, and people have been theorizing that had something to do with his dead wife. Now we know it does. And also, yeah, we were theorizing from that first episode that Kinger did have a dead wife with the queen figure in the that one door who had an X over her. We assumed that was Kinger's wife. Turns out it was. Good way to foreshadow that, I think. Lots of good, clever foreshadowing in this series. I really appreciate that. And the whole paradox of this man becoming the monster he was afraid of by shooting his wife. And that's also a metaphor for how the anxiety over trying to kill this sort of new status quo is what's bringing about the resolution of that status quo into your worst nightmare. So your worst nightmare is abstracting. Your worst nightmare is losing your mind. And the thought of the fact that you are going to lose your mind if you stay here, that is paradoxically the thing that is making you lose your mind. Again, it's a really great metaphor for what they're going through. I also like that little gag at the end where Caine looks at his wacky watch, but it's not on his wrist, and he's like, oh, looks like they're done with the adventure. You know, obviously I don't think Caine needs his wacky watch to know that the characters, because he has those all-seeing eyes everywhere, so he knows what they're doing at all times, pretty much. but there's something funny. And this is the show's sense of humor, what it does great. These little gags where it's like, I don't even really know why that's funny, but it is. And, you know, it has to do with just the sort of eccentricity of this AI, this Caine character, that, like, a lot of, you know, a lot of what he does is him trying to kind of pretend to be something that he isn't. So he's sort of pretending to be human to kind of to act as a sort of a guide for these characters when really he has no idea what he's doing. And so he looks at his watch that doesn't exist and he gets a reading from it. Really funny. But yeah, overall, I mean, that's that. And then we get the whole thing with Pomni kind of learning to appreciate Ragatha more through talking to Kinger, which of course I think was something that I was expecting. Like, we're kind of building up to this thing with Pomni and Ragatha, how Ragatha kind of feels a little bit feels bad for Pomni and wants to make her feel better, but Pomni is just kind of brushing her off. I'm really interested in seeing more development with Ragatha, because she seems like a really interesting character. But that was just a little thing that was kind of thrown in at the end. Jax was gagged and bound for most of this episode, which I think is a funny way of the creators saying, we need to get rid of Jax in this episode. We just don't have room for his chaotic personality and all the things that we're trying to do. So let's just gag him and bind him in the corner of the room while we do what we want to do with this episode. Kind of a clever way of removing him from the picture. But yeah, so interesting, because I expected this episode to be lighter on the conceptual stuff and heavier on like the fun, spooky haunted house stuff. But really, honestly, the haunted house stuff wasn't all that fun. It was kind of boring and kind of shitty and kind of, it didn't look all that appealing. Wasn't all that great, in my opinion. Maybe it's because I'm not really a horror fan. But the conceptual stuff actually was really good in this episode. Again, I really like the substance of this series. I think this is a very substantive, very deep show. And I've always felt that from the first episode, and it's just continuing on with this approach of just being very psychological. And also having really good character development, developing these characters' relationships with each other. And I'm just here for it. I'm so glad that this show is as successful as it is, because I really want to see where it goes. And from what I've heard, you know, the creator has a distinct vision for every episode and how the show's going to end, and it's not going to be all that many episodes, which is, you know, it does make you kind of sad, but it's ultimately a good thing, because it shows that the show has a direction for itself and it knows what it wants to do, and it's not open-ended, and it's leading to something, which I really like. And I like the fact that it's not very lore-focused. You know, it's thrown in like these Easter eggs, like the CNA thing from the first episode, but it's really choosing not to be a lore-heavy show. It's really about the characters, and that's what I like.